Hey guys, welcome to the YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about the reality of collecting physical media, because in all the time I've been on YouTube, well over a year now, I haven't really talked about the realities of it. I've talked a lot about like collecting habits, I've talked a lot about collecting costs, but I haven't talked about realities. And what am I talking about when I say realities? Well, one big thing you can tell from this collection is space. You never have enough space for all this physical media. I've had to pack away videotapes in under my TV in drawers. I've had to pack away old games that I didn't have the covers for anymore. I've put them into drawers that are like Kallax from IKEA. I've put away my HD DVD collection. They're on the floor over here in a Kallax sort of crate. So I'm going to put those in a Kallax from IKEA drawer. And you know, you keep shuffling things to create space. So I've been really going through my collection the past couple of weeks. That's why I've been kind of putting together very few videos. Because I've really been looking at the collection and I've been saying, you know, the reality of having a collection like this is, yeah, it's cool to look at. It's very cool. I love having the ability to pull Breaking Bad off my shelf here and have a physical representation of Breaking Bad. Now people also say, oh, but you can have that digitally. I like the physical representation. There's Heisenberg. I'm sure there's a little sticker in here. No, there's a TV Los Politamanos shirt in here. So you print that onto a shirt. You know, these are the little things I like. I like stuff like that. I love physical representations of stuff I like. That being said, when you like everything, you run out of space, you know. That's a really big reality of collecting physical media. There is just never enough. So with the wrestling VHS tapes, everyone knows I have the wrestling VHS tapes. I've showed them in previous videos. I've come to the realization that maybe these tagged classics WWE DVDs from the UK might be the better way to go, because I can fit more into less. You know, for the same space a videotape would take up, I can go and find a DVD and I could fit 3 DVDs in the same space. So I've been really looking at stuff like that, like, can I do smarter moves? And while most people don't collect stuff like this, people aren't running out putting together everything and basically having a video library. I see game collectors out there like, you know, Angry Video Game Nerd and Metal Jesus and all these other people. They all put together gaming collections and stuff. And that's another reality. When you get to the point where you have everything you could possibly want, everyone knows I'm a big physical media collector in terms of Blu-rays and movies and television and stuff like that. But when you get to a certain point, you just kind of run out of stuff to collect. And so you start going out saying, oh, I need to buy Tony Hawk Pro Skater for the GameCube. I got to go and buy some Wii games. I've got to get an Xbox. I got to buy consoles like the Xbox consoles so I can go buy Xbox games. So there is always something to collect. And at a certain point, you just start asking yourself, do I need to buy everything? And certainly no. Most people would say, no, certainly you don't need to buy everything. But this is a reality of a physical media collector, you know. These are some of the realities we face. These are some of the realities that we constantly look at and say, like, okay, did I need to buy UFC 1, 2, and 3, the video games, on Xbox? Or did I really need all of these? Did I need every edition of... Well, I don't have every edition of the wrestling games at the moment. I need to collect those. I do want every wrestling edition, though. But you know what I'm saying? There's sometimes you'll buy stuff and then you'll ask yourself, like all these DVDs I've got here, you can't see them, but in these Billy bookcase little half ones that I have, these are Billy bookcases, by the way. I know a lot of people ask about what do I use to store these. These are Billy bookcases from IKEA. But, you know, you start asking yourself the questions of, did I need to buy AEW Fight Forever? Yes, it's a wrestling game. I also bought TNA back in the day, TNA's game, I forget what it was called. But, you know, I'm a fan of collecting wrestling, but did I need AEWs? And I got that one on sale, by the way. It's not like I paid full price. But do you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes you analyze this stuff, and sometimes you really go into like, did I need to spend $650? It's in front of the camera here. Let me just grab it. I'm going to come around. You're going to get me off screen for 2 seconds. I'm not going to do a cuts in this one or anything. We're going back to the old style because it was working and I enjoy doing it talking without cuts. So, you know, I got all these Dreamcast games, I should say. So some of these hold their value. Like I've got Crazy Taxi in here somewhere. I know it's in here. There's Crazy Taxi 1 and 2. They're pretty valuable. But I paid $650 for about 9 Dreamcast games. Like I don't know why I keep saying GameCube. But you know, I paid that money and I was happy to pay that money. They did a really good deal for me on them because they're really good condition. And yeah, there's a part of me that was like, oh, $6.50 for 9 Dreamcast games. Did I really need to spend that much? I don't even have a Dreamcast. But then when I look at it, I'm like, but I feel a satisfaction and I made an informed decision. I weighed up the benefits. I weighed up some of the costs that I would be paying if I was to wait and buy it separately. At the end of the day, I was happy with that cost. But this is the thing. Sometimes I look at these DVDs down here, like, there's none in here, but like Two and a Half Men. I've never watched Two and a Half Men. I've watched one episode here or there, but I've never sat down and watched the seasons. Did I really need to have that in the collection? Yeah, this would have probably been a couple of dollars, like maybe even a couple of cents. Maybe I got it for a couple of cents, you know? When DVDs are so cheap, you can get a couple of DVDs for pretty, like, 50 cents or whatever, you know? But did I need to have Two and a Half Men? There's a lot of these questions that I ask as a collector, and these are some of the realities you deal with. One thing that I've really been looking at is these figurines here. Like, I've packed away all the pop vinyls, so I had a lot of pop vinyls along here in previous videos from about a year ago. Didn't really feel like it was something I needed. It was something that I just was putting there because I needed to house them somewhere, and, you know, it was just convenient to have them there. But now I'm kind of like, oh, okay, let's just pack that away. I can reform this space. You know, I can kind of put other stuff here, use the space for other things. Like, the horror collection's always been here, but I've also put Atari up here. I've put the Nintendo games here. I've put a couple of other things that I can house in this area. And so you're constantly just doing this shuffle of, like, you know, getting everything you want in one place, but also you're constantly looking at, do I need this? Do I need to have Home Alone? Like, I've got Home Alone, all the Home Alone movies here, or most of them. I know there's special ones on Disney that they're not putting physical media out for. But do I need Home Alone, full movie collection? I only really care about Kevin McAllister, you know, Macaulay Culkin. They're the ones that I grew up on. They're the ones I'm nostalgic for. Do I really need 3 and 4? Now, obviously, number 3 had Scarlett Johansson, one of her acting debuts, very early on acting in a movie. So it is important to have it. Like, definitely it's, you know, as an archive sort of thing, you kind of want to have that. But at a certain point, you kind of get to this point where it's like, do I intend to watch them movies, you know? Do I intend to go back and watch Home Alone 3 and 4? How often am I going to watch those? Is it worth keeping here on the off chance that I'm going to watch those movies? You know, that is the question I'm constantly asking. Also, I'm constantly updating things. Like, I've got some wrestling things over there that I'm looking at off camera, and, like, I'll update wrestling things. So if I have the standard DVDs for a wrestling release, but then I found out it had a digibook, I'll buy the digibook and then replace the earlier copy, assuming the discs are better. You know, sometimes you can get scratched discs. But that's the kind of questions I'm asking. I'm just going to put these back behind the camera, or actually I'll put them on the shelf here so I don't go too far off camera. We'll just put them over there for the time being. But these are some of the realities of collecting physical media, and I know every physical media collector goes through the same thing. We all go through the same thing of, we look at our collections, we sort of go like, oh, I wanted it, and I love having them. Like, I can see the Dragon boxes off behind the camera. It's really behind the camera. But I'm looking at them, and I have the 7 of them, and I also have the Japanese Dragon box, one of them, which was Volume 2. And they're much larger. But I will look at them, and I'll be like, am I happy having those in the collection? I think I paid $1,400 for the 7 of them, and also that box, the Japanese one. But when I look at that now, I mean, the values went up. Definitely the value on some of these things have went up. But then you start looking at it as like, am I ever going to watch Dragon Ball in Japanese, like that one? Like, Dragon Ball Z I'm talking about. Now, with Daima and the newer stuff and Super and all that, I will only watch those in Japanese because that's how I've watched them. That is how I prefer to watch them. I love Sean Schemmel and all those guys with Funimation. I love hearing those voice actors still doing their thing. But Chris Sabat as well also. I love hearing those voices, but that's the Dragon Ball Z part of me. That's me wanting to watch Dragon Ball Z and wanting to watch it the way it was aired on Toonami or, you know, Cheese TV in Australia. I watched it on Cheese TV. 9/11/2001, the day, or 12... September 12th was the day it never aired in Australia for obvious reasons. A lot of kids woke up to, obviously, what was happening in America. But, you know, you look at stuff like that. I remember watching Dragon Ball on that, and watching Dragon Ball Z, and then I'd watch Dragon Ball on Toonami in about 2004 when they started picking that up after Z, and I'd watch the backstory of Goku, how he got to, you know, the start of Dragon Ball Z. But, you know, with Daima and also, you know, with Daima and also Super and anything new, I tend to go to watch Japanese because Nozawa's just too good at her voice acting. Like, it's on a different level. But then, you know, I can also enjoy Funimation. Like, I'm not saying, oh, I'm never going to watch a Funimation thing. For Broly, I watched all the dubs. I watched Japanese, I watched the English, I watched everything. Same thing with Superhero. I believe in having a range of different things. That being said, I also got over here, or I don't know where I put Dragon Ball. I think the anime might be over there, actually. But I had different versions of Dragon Ball movies. I had different versions. So I had Broly because it had a slipcover. I had one was the Steelbook. I had another one which was the 4K for Superhero. Like, there's different sort of ones I have. But then, as I said, you come to the realization that, do I really need to have everything? Like, as I said, there's a part of me that's like, maybe it's time to sell some of the wrestling VHS tapes because I've replaced a lot with tagged classics. And when I compare tagged classics to the VHS tape, I don't know if a lot of you remember VHS tapes, how it was, but you can have lines going through it, and, you know, the tapes obviously age. You know, tapes are pretty safe, like, unless you're bringing in a giant magnet, that electrified magnet to wipe over them, you're pretty safe. But obviously they age, you know, they're at that point where they're very old. And I like the stuff before it. Obviously, the stuff on Tagged Classics, it's just the event. On the VHS tape, you'll have WWF home video, and here, get this soundtrack when it comes out, and look at the wrestling figures, you know. That's the stuff that's pretty cool about VHS. But, same question. Just because it has that little bit of extras, how much am I sitting there saying, oh, I gotta have that nostalgic trip? No, I'm more or less like, oh, I just want to see the event. I want to see the Royal Rumble 2001, you know, that great standoff with The Rock and Stone Cold. I've watched it many times, but, you know, I want to see that. I'm there for the event. I'm not there for the ads before it, you know. That's the kind of stuff I'm asking, and that's the kind of... I haven't really went out and bought 4K in a couple of months now. Like, the reason I'm not really making many videos is because I haven't been buying. I haven't been going out. When I look at my collection now, I'm like, I've got everything I possibly need. Like, I've got just about everything I could imagine. Yeah, there's occasionally new ones that I'll pick up and I'll want to be watching, and I'll prefer to watch it on 4K when it comes out. I'd rather just go and pay 40, and instead of getting on a streaming service or whatever, I'd rather just pay 40 and own the thing instead of paying 20 for a month, 1 month, and not owning it. Makes more sense to me. And I don't stream that often. I watch YouTube, but that's the only service I pay for because I'm on it, and also no promotion. But, you know, I'm just saying, like, I use it actively. I watch, you know, Undertaker. I watch Eric Bischoff. I watch all these podcasts on here. I watch Maven. Maven's been doing a lot of good stuff. I watch Rene Dupree. You know, I watch all of these old wrestlers. Eugene has been doing some really good stuff in terms of talking about his journey in WWE. So I watch all of these old wrestling things. Cornette, I listen to Cornette here and there, although Cornette, I haven't really been paying much attention because there's only, like, Cornette with me, I listen to Cornette, but it's kind of like valleys, peaks and valleys. So I'll listen to Cornette when I find something of, like I want to check out this week's episode about the Edge or Cope versus John Moxley, that hardcore match on AEW that happened. Saw bits and pieces of it. Want to hear what Cornette has to say. Want to hear what Eric Bischoff has to say. Want to hear what everyone has to say, you know? So I kind of look at that. I kind of think about, like, you know, YouTube is my main streaming service. For everything else, like, I might watch Breaking Bad once a year, but also, like, I know it's something I'm going to go back to constantly. The Boys I have over here, I'm going to go back to constantly. Although when I look at my TV Blu-ray section, I'm asking myself, how have I even watched Divorce? I don't know why that's really in my collection. I probably got it for super cheap at JB Hi-Fi. It's HBO. So I can tell you right now, I probably would have bought it because it's HBO. It was probably cheap enough. And it's got, you know, Sarah Jessica Parker in it. And Thomas Hayden Church, you know, Sandman, you know. So I probably got that cheap enough, and I was like, yeah, I should probably add that to the collection. Keep it in the collection. Keep it going. I know I definitely picked up The Crown Season 6. I got all the rest of the seasons because I got part of the way through Netflix, and then for whatever reason they said, we're going to split it into 2 parts. Now, if they were doing it weekly all the way along, I would have been like, yeah, I can just pay a recurring thing and just keep it on till the end of The Crown. But with this one, it was weird because they did the usual drop of, here's all the episodes, but we're also going to keep half the episodes for later on. And that just kind of, like, ruined the flow of the show. But, you know, there's part of me that asks, do I really need to have so much here? Do I really need to have everything? The realities of collecting physical media is that there's only a finite amount of space. Like, now people say, you can move, you can get more space. but then I'll fill up that space, you know, there will always be more space, you know. So I'm trying to make less is more approach, you know. I'm trying to really double down on like, okay, I've replaced Chopper with a Blu-ray copy, for example. Great movie, Chopper, Eric Bana. One of his best movies. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. But, you know, this movie right here, I've got this on Blu-ray. And people can say what they will about the Blu-ray, but I like this. And I think, yeah, it's good to have this. It's definitely good to have it. I definitely like to preserve the original copy. But then it's like, do I really intend to watch this over a Blu-ray copy? Or likewise, if I got a Blu-ray copy, do I really intend to watch a Blu-ray copy over a 4K? Assuming it's not Terminator 2. I always knock Terminator 2, I really shouldn't. But, you know, there's so often, you just like look at this collection and it's like, do I need all of this? And that's the question. That's a reality that I've come to, you know. The realization of, you don't need to have everything. And this is what I say about this in just about every video. There's a lot of YouTubers out there. I don't like to name names, but there are YouTubers I see. Not the ones that I mention on here. If I mention them on the channel, it means I'm watching their content and I'm happy with them. And, you know, if I'm mentioning them, I'm taking the time to say, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about, you know? But it's more those channels that are like, we'll do here and do a side-by-side comparison of frame by frame. And that's not part of how to watch a movie. Part of watching a movie, like I've talked about True Lies when I did a review, and I was like, part of watching a movie is to sit there and enjoy it. Now, you can realize with True Lies that it had digital noise reduction, but it's an action movie. Like, I don't really care that much. It looks freaking amazing. I was happy with it. But I know a lot of people are like, preservation, you know, the preservationist in me is like, don't do that, don't do this. So I do keep the DVD copy, but in what reality am I going to choose my DVD copy over the shiny new 4K I bought, you know? These are the questions I ask myself, and these are some of the realities of collecting physical media. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. I am so interested, because a lot of collectors watch my channel as well, so what do you guys think? Let me know. Like, I'm really interested in this topic, and I'm really interested to know what you guys have to say. Let me know down in the comments, and I will get back to you in the next one, and yeah. Tell me some of the realities of your collection. Did you realize that you were collecting too much physical media? Did you overbuy? Did you buy stuff just because it was so cheap that it was almost, you couldn't pass up the deal, you know, that sort of reality? Tell me some of your thoughts, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace!